Battleground, New York City, the fight for your vote. Your front row seat to the battle for New York's next mayor. It's the old guard clinging to power, chasing a candidate they never saw coming. Every night, our experts break it down.
What New Yorkers want above all else is authenticity.
He's been more visible in the Hamptons this summer than he has been on the streets of New York City.
We're listening to the people who matter most, you, the voters.
He is the shining star. He's working very hard. And I think he would work hard for the city, too.
And when the candidates sit across from us, nothing's off the table. What's your plan to make New York City feel like a safer city?
S.E. Cup, that's your perception. Of course, there's a lot of crime.
So what's happening right now? Let's dive in.
Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. I'm John Avlon, in for S.E. Cup. It is Thursday, September 4th. We are 61 days away from the high-stakes New York mayor's race. And as we hit that crucial two-month mark, all eyes, not just in the city, but in the state and even to some extent in the nation, are on the New York City mayor's race. We're going to bring it all to you in great detail, talking to experts later this hour with Jim Walden, former independent candidate for mayor who stepped out. But we're going to begin with reporter Ross Barkan from New York Magazine's Intelligencer. Ross, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be back.
Well, listen, we got a lot to get to. Let's start with frontrunner Zohran Mamdani. He is taking issue, understandably, with those reports that the Trump administration has been looking for a job for Eric Adams. He calls it an affront to democracy. What's the fallout on the campaign trail?
Well, right now you do have a situation where it looks like Eric Adams is seriously weighing leaving the race. Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, has said he's not departing. The idea is that they hope that everyone can leave the race except for Cuomo, and Cuomo, in theory, could then gather up enough anti-Mamdani votes to win. I still think that's fairly unlikely, but I do think the possibility of Adams leaving is much greater than it was probably a few ago. Whereas with Sliwa, it does not seem terribly likely that he will depart.
So to be clear, despite all the Adams campaign's strenuous denials, you think that the rumor mill seems to have some credibility behind it. You think there could be further consolidation.
There is some credibility. Whether he ultimately does it is a greater question. There have been credible reports he was offered a HUD position, talk of ambassadorships. Maggie Haberman posted that. I mean, these are good reporters. It's fake. The question is whether Eric Adams will actually leave early, take this job. He's not going to be mayor next year. That's the reality. The question for him is, does he serve out or does he get going with Trump now? He's probably going to be with Trump in January, most likely.
And for those history nerds out there, Mayor William O'Dwyer was excised from office by being offered the ambassadorship to Mexico, as I recall, going way back. Yeah. But here's what's so topsy-turvy about this. Obviously, a lot of statewide Republicans have been salivating at the idea that Zohran Mamdani could be the face of the Democratic Party. And there had been a lot of thinking that Donald Trump wanted that. Republicans want that. And yet you've got folks like John Catsimatidis coming out today saying he spoke to Trump. And in fact, he says that Trump is concerned about the mayor's race. He does not want a socialist mayor. And he said it's not going to happen under his watch. Wants a person like that under his watch. So what's the deal? Do Republicans want that kind of foil from Zohran Mamdani? Or do you think it's credible that Donald Trump wants an off-ramp from that kind of
I think most Republicans would prefer him as the foil. But there's also a lot of business interests and people within New York City, Donald Trump being a native New Yorker, being someone who still owns property here, who genuinely don't want the 30-year-old socialist to become mayor. So I do think that divide is real. Most national Republicans like the idea. The Long Island Republicans probably like it too. But there are the real estate moguls, financiers, and even Trump himself, as someone very tied to New York, who just don't see him as a mayor, find it very revolting and want to do anything they can to stop him.
So it's all about the Benjamins. I want to get in one more member of Congress who weighed in, Congressman Richie Torres, weighing in on X, tweeting, Donald Trump has gutted Medicaid and SNAP by $1 trillion to bankroll tax cuts for billionaires. his not so subtle endorsement in a New York City election is nothing short of the kiss of death. Now, presumably referring to the man he previously endorsed for mayor, Andrew Cuomo. Do you think that even the hint of Donald Trump meddling is the kiss of death for a candidate?
Right now, I do, quite frankly. I think the Mamdani campaign is probably cutting many ads and in his PACs as well, tying Cuomo to Trump. Trump is very unpopular in New York State. He's very unpopular in New York City. He did better than any Republican since the 1980s last year, but it's important to keep that in context. He got about 30% to versus 68 or so. So even though he hit a high watermark, you're talking about 30% of the electorate voting for Donald Trump. That share will be smaller this fall. So yes, if you are a Democrat like Cuomo is, the independent, you are aligned with Donald Trump, who has a falling approval rating and is really tested by Democrats. It's going to hurt you. Kiss of death. Is he automatically going to lose? No, but it is a political liability in a Democratic city.
Now, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez today speaking out, saying that it's time for Democrats, leading Democrats in New York State, to really rally around the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani. But Governor Kathy Hochul, Senator Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, leader of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives, all have so far stayed away. What's this sort of divide in the Democratic Party doing?
There are establishment Democrats like the ones you mentioned who don't agree with Mamdani's politics, in particular in Israel. You named 3 Democrats who are very pro-Israel. Mamdani is pro-Palestine, and they cannot bring themselves to support him. Now, other establishment Democrats have, like Letitia James, now the leaders, the Brooklyn and Bronx Democratic parties. But this divide is real. I don't think the establishment Democrats who aren't endorsing him are benefiting as much as they think. I mean, they're afraid of tied to him perhaps for the midterms next year, at least in the case of Jeffries and Schumer. But it shows their weakness in that Mamdani won the primary overwhelmingly. The fact whether they do or don't endorse, it's not going to impact the race all that much. It makes them look a bit impotent, but I do believe they are worried about being too tied to him, and also being very pro-Israel. They don't want to be seen aligning with someone who is very critical of Israel.
Look, I think it also could be genuinely a deep disagreement in terms of policy between the center left and the Democratic Socialists. And you know, those are divides that need to be bridged. But Mamdani won a Democratic primary, close partisan primary, very convincingly. But that's a very different electorate. And so I think that's what we're seeing, why there's so many candidates running, and why we've got a more competitive general election than usual. I want to go to Mamdani saying, look, he wants a one-on-one with Cuomo. He says, bring it on. But there is polling to suggest that that wouldn't be a walk in the park, that if it's a head-to-head, that Cuomo in particular, that race could be very competitive. So is he right in saying that, you know, he's not worried about that polling? Bring it on.
So the poll you're saying, I assume, was one that was from a real estate group that was anti-Mamdani, slightly Cuomo aligned. I haven't seen really an independent poll to show Cuomo beating head-to-head. The reality is, in a one-on-one race, that's Cuomo's best shot. That's inarguable. It's also true that Cuomo is a deeply flawed candidate. Now, there is a universe where there is a center-left candidate who is well-regarded, not resigned in disgrace, who has not been accused of mismanaging nursing homes, who could beat the Democratic Socialists. That candidate in some universe exists, but we don't have that universe right now. It's Andrew Cuomo, who resigned 4 years ago, who underperformed in the primary, who's not a very good retail campaigner, up against a young candidate who's going to have a lot more money than him. I mean, the interesting thing is the money, where in the primary Cuomo had a super PAC, a lot of the super PAC money is not showing up again, whereas Mamdani is fundraising very aggressively. So ultimately, Mamdani, with the Democratic nomination, with the late support he has now, with the money he has now, it's really hard to see him losing a one to Cuomo. It's also true that Cuomo's only chance to beat him is a one-on-one. He's not going to do it with Curtis Sliwa in the race. It's also not clear Cuomo will consolidate Republicans behind him in that scenario. Republicans could sit it out. A lot like Cuomo. They'll vote for Sliwa. They blame Cuomo for the COVID lockdowns, for the nursing home scandals. He's not popular in the Republican Party. So that's another wrinkle in all this. I don't know if he automatically hoovers all these votes up. Some voters may just decide they don't want to vote at all.
And as you pointed out, there is no sign that Curtis Sliwa is getting out, and that almost inevitably means it's not a one-on-one; it's a three-way race. Now, you've written recently about how the Stop Zohran movement is showing its ineptitude. I think you've explained a little bit about some of the difficulty of coalescing, and yet, Mamdani has policies that are far outside anything we've seen in City Hall. I mean, Bill de Blasio. This guy appointed Bill Bratton as police commissioner. There's no indication you'd see a continuation of those sorts of policies. So why do you think there has been? Is it just about energy and momentum?
Mamdani, given his youth and given the fact that he identifies as a socialist, has real vulnerabilities. I think some of the weakness of the opposition is a reflection of his strength as a candidate. He ran very well in the primary. He's very energetic. He's charismatic. His were very compelling. He built a broad-based coalition. At the same time, the field right now is weak. I mean, you have Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace. You have Eric Adams indicted last year in corruption charges, only walked free because of Donald Trump. And you have Curtis Sliwa, who is a gadfly. He's never been elected official. He is also charismatic, but he's also not seen as a serious person who will govern the city. So you take all that together, I mean, you're not going to build, this is not Michael Bloomberg waiting in the wings. This is a disgraced mayor and Curtis Sliwa. And that's where the race is right now.
All right. Well, that sums it up. It's a hell of a way to pick the mayor of America's largest city. Ross Barkan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, up next, Jim Walden is going to discuss his decision to end his independent campaign for mayor. We're back with Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. I'm John Avlon, in for SE Cup today. And as always, we are laser focused on the New York City mayor's race. And we've got a lot of news. Joining us now is the former independent candidate for mayor, Jim Walden, who recently announced his decision to step aside in an attempt to consolidate the field. Jim, it's
Thanks,
good to
John.
see you.
Thanks for having me on.
Tell us what led you to take this difficult and I think
well, that's very nice of you, John. It's really just the math. I mean, if a candidate's priority is putting New Yorkers first, and that candidate believes that Zohran Mamdani is an existential threat to New York, as I do, then you got to have an honest conversation with yourself. And at the end of the day, of course, my polling was low and I faced challenges, but I still had $1 million in my bank account and several $1 million that I could have raised. And at the end of the day, I just decided that my values mattered more than my political ambitions, because those ambitions were driven largely by the quality of the field that I saw at the time that I filed in October. And now the race is what it is. And I think that people need to focus on the candidates that remain: Cuomo, Adams, Sliwa, and Joe Hernandez, the most recent candidate. And at the end of October, I encourage them to make the same calculus that I did, which is if they're polling, they should consolidate around the front runner, back that person, and have it be a one-on-one race, as your last guest, Ross, who's very knowledgeable, pointed out. But I've been saying since July, Mamdani wins in a split race. Mamdani loses in a one-on-one.
Well, as you know, Ross even contested some of that math, but I want to get to the reaction to you stepping out. You did take that pledge early. Not all the other candidates did. I know that you heard very quickly from the Cuomo campaign, a sort of a effusive, thanks for your courage to step aside and consolidate the field. Have you heard from any other candidates?
I have not. So politics is what it is. Obviously, a lot of this was new to me as someone that's never run before. But politics aside, this isn't really about the quality of every candidate. John, I mean, you've run. You know what happens in these elections. You get a bunch of people around you that say, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? Who thinks they're the best candidate? Everyone has a valid claim to that. What matters is the math. And anyone will tell you that if there is a chance to beat Mamdani, and we can drill into the numbers behind this because they're not that hard to understand, if there's a chance to beat Mamdani, there's only a chance in a one-on-one race. As long as there's two candidates competing against him and they split the vote at any percentage, Mamdani's going to get walked into City Hall. And from my perspective, that's a terrible thing for New York.
I want to get into the stakes of that race, but first I've got a practical question for you. Will your name still be on the ballot?
That's a great question. All I can say is it's outside my control. So by the end of tomorrow, we will have filed all the paperwork that we need, both with the Campaign Finance Board, who regulates the money, and the Board of Election that regulates the ballot. We are going to ask the Board of Elections to take my name off. The rules around this are very unclear. So it is unclear whether the Board of Election has the power to remove my name, although I certainly believe they do. If they want to avoid voter confusion, which is right now my central goal, they will take my name off the ballot so that I don't take one vote away from any other candidate. And that's what I want.
Well, and the reason you want that is just because you have said you believe that Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, is a, quote, existential threat to the future of New York. Back that up. That's as big a statement as you can make.
I'd love to. And, I learned my lesson about politics in part from the Trump election. When someone says something, when they take a position, believe them. And Zohran Mamdani has been super clear over the course of many years that he is anti-police. He is going to embrace policies that, in my view, are anti-Semitic. He does not want a capitalist system of economic organization at all. He wants the government to essentially assume much greater power over people's lives. He thinks for the good, I think for the bad. And for those reasons, he is not what New York or America needs right now. Putting aside the fact that at an earlier point in his life, he decided to use his voice to uplift actual terrorists, and nobody's actually challenging him on that.
Hold on, let me pause you on that, because we've got the anniversary of 9/11 next week. That's an incendiary comment. What are the specifics?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's an op-ed that I wrote that people can find online that's about this and has the tweets right there for people to see with access to them. Literally, he supported the woman that was convicted in Israel of a bombing that killed 2 Jewish students. She came under false pretenses to the United States. The Obama administration, not exactly a bastion of the right, was trying to deport her, and he called it an unjust prosecution and later called Obama evil for trying to get her out of the country. That's not all. He in another tweet, he and his organization that he started at Walden, the Students for Justice in Palestine, claimed that Anwar al-Awlaki, who is a 9/11 conspirator, had been radicalized by the FBI. And he even, just days after the Boston bombing, tweeted in support of the one bomber that was still alive. I always mispronounce his name, saying that he was being treated unfairly by the system, essentially. So these are actual tweets. One of them actually came from him, and 2 others came from his Walden group, Students for Justice in Palestine. And I've asked the media to confront him about it, have an explanation. I don't understand how anyone who aspires at any level to be a leader of any elected office could be elected despite those sorts of sympathies.
All right, Jim Walden, stick around. Battleground NYC will be back. We're back with Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. I'm John Avlon, in for SE Cup. And back with me is Jim Walden, the now former independent mayoral candidate who announced his decision to step aside to consolidate the field just this week. Jim, I want to talk about the themes of your campaign and the way you chose to run. You ran on a strong anti-corruption platform at a time when signs of corruption are everywhere. You ran as an independent from the giddy-up. I think, reflecting some concerns about the closed Democratic partisan primary, but also now we've got 2 other candidates running as independents. In that case, you were ahead of the curve. But honestly, given the themes of your campaign, what was your experience? Why do you think that your campaign didn't catch fire.
Although I tried mightily. Listen, it was a crowded field, and I'm not well known, and those have practical impediments. But at the same time, I'm glad that that we leaned in hard to the anti-corruption theme, and I hope that the other candidates pick up our policy idea, because that will really have a significant impact on the levels of corruption that are unaddressed in the city. I hope that people lean into my housing plan, because not only will it solve the housing crisis, but it will also address kids in poverty. No one's talking about the 29,000 kids that are born into poverty every year, and we can have a housing plan that actually pays for a program to help those kids out of poverty. So for those reasons,
so I want to give you a chance to get into both of those, because too much of these campaigns are about horse race coverage and who's up and who's down. And that's understandable, but it's really about the ideas the candidates bring. Let's start with corruption. Give me the 50,000 foot, what you think New York City can do to curb the corruption, which has eaten into.
So what we should have had since Tammany Hall, we need an independent anti-corruption czar, whatever you call that position, that doesn't report to the mayor and isn't responsible to the mayor, who's got full power to investigate corruption in City Hall, in City Council, anywhere in the city. That's what we need. And so our proposal was to replace the public advocate with a citywide Department of Public Integrity. We need a charter revision for that, but the mayor can still reorganize what's now the Department of Investigation into a much more robust agency that has prosecutors, that has a dedicated corruption court, and that has the power to ban people from city government jobs if they're convicted of corruption-related offenses. That's what we need.
All right, let's talk about housing. Let's talk about affordability. This clearly is something that, Zohran Mamdani did very effectively. Authenticity, affordability, a talented campaigner. You obviously have disagreements with him on policy. What's your proposal to deal with affordability, specifically housing?
In a nutshell, first of all, build much more ambitiously. My housing plan would have created around 200,000 new units of housing across the city, market and rent stabilized and low income housing, 50,000 of it being affordable, and then use some of the proceeds for that, because there'll be a lot of money on the table for developers. Use part of the proceeds to fund a kids in poverty program, which would have been a first in kind in New York City, giving a stipend to kids who were born into poverty so that they can have a life-changing amount of money to start their young adult lives. So those.
Is this sort of a baby bond?
Baby bonds. And instead of freeze rents, I never thought that freeze the rents was a workable policy. But what is a workable policy is lowering the rent for the roughly 250,000 people who are in rent stabilized housing who can't afford the rent they have now. And there's a specific way to do it that will use a tax that will have almost no impact on any commercial activity, and actually fund stipends so that people that are paying 60-70% of their income on rent will only pay 35%. That's the kind of solution that I'm hoping the other candidates embrace, because those policies are better than and more achievable than the slogan-based policies that Zohran Mamdani is championing.
I think people might also not appreciate that fully a third of the average rent cost is actually passed on from real estate taxes. So, I mean, there are things that we can do. While we still have you, first of all, I know it's still early, but will you be endorsing another candidate?
John, I'm going to do exactly what I said in July. In July, I said that I thought that there should be a poll at the beginning of October and that the front runner should get the endorsement of the others. So I'm going to wait through the end of the month, and I'm going to look at the first independent poll that comes out the last week of September or the first week in October, and whoever the front runner is, and I'm agnostic between the other candidates, whoever is the front runner is going to get my endorsement.
All right, whether that's Cuomo, Sliwa, or Adams. Do you have any sense that any of the other candidates will do what you just did?
John, all I can say is I hope so. I mean, everyone says that they love New York, and everyone says that, they're all in for protecting the city. And everyone not named Mamdani has said that he's an existential threat. So it's fine to talk the talk, but people need to walk the walk. And all I can say is I hope that when they're alone and they're away from all of the people who are telling them how great they are, that they actually look at the math and realize that the only way to beat this guy is a one-on-one race.
All right. Jim Walden, want to thank you very much for getting in the arena. for running and for your decision to step aside when it looked like the math wasn't mathing for you. We're going to see you back here tomorrow, every day, Monday through Friday, for more in-depth conversation, laser focused on the high-stakes New York mayor's race. Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote.